I've hurt people. I've hurt my family. I didn't like who I was. I hated who I was. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't deserve this life.
Patrick Russell, welcome to the Hoosier Bushcraft Podcast. We got a lot to get in today with you, from McGeezy Outdoors, Wilderness Mastery School, your military career. We're going to start out, where'd you grow up?
Thanks for having me. So I was born and raised in Montana, born in Helena, Montana, raised in the Flathead Valley, just outside of Glacier National Park. My father was in the military. So shortly after I was born, my dad got stationed to Japan. Lived about 9 years in Japan.
What branch was he in?
He was in the Navy.
Okay.
So lived about 9 years in Japan, and then moved back to Montana about when I was about starting third grade. Okay, in the early 90s, and just grew up in the Flathead Valley, and until I joined the military, and shortly after 9/11.
Were you doing a lot of camping and stuff like that when you were up in Montana?
Oh yeah, and did all the things when I was growing up there. It was a very small town, very small, quiet town. Now it's absolutely blown up over the last 10 plus years, whatever. But growing up, it was still very wild. And I actually lived on a wildlife refuge. Mm-hmm. And so got to go wander around and, see a bunch of turkeys, deer, bears, whatever. It was just an everyday life to interact and engage with animals at some point. Just walking to the bus stop, there'd be some sort of critter. And then my father and I, we would go hunting, and much different than hunting nowadays, where I live in Kentucky, where I'm restricted to like an acre. This was actual hunting. We'd go for days out into the Rocky Mountains, just not like getting lost, but we'd just park, look across the valley, see if we can see anything, and then just start making our way towards that. And so I guess that was like really just what spurred my interest in not only the military, but just out the wilderness altogether, to be just comfortable and just kind of at peace and all of the things that the wilderness can provide with you. Because you're out there, it's quiet, you're just alone with the people that you care about, the people that you love, but you're also just learning the entire time you're out there. So I didn't realize that at such a young age. I was already learning land navigation, terrain analysis, because we didn't have GPSs back then, we didn't have iPhones back then. So you're moving and you're like, I'm on this ridge line. Okay, here's a definitive object. So then as I'm going, as long as I can still see this object, I know how to get my way back. Just little things like that, or following rivers or whatever, trying to track and stalk animals. But yeah, you'd go for days and not see another soul. So you're just really immersed into the wilderness up there. And it was just, looking back, I wish I would have taken more advantage of it, but
when you're kids, you're not thinking about stuff like that.
You're not thinking about stuff like that. You're taking it for granted. But now that I'm much older, I appreciate it a lot more and wish that I could go back and just kind of relive those experiences and just immerse myself into nature and into that wilderness at that level.
Of course.
At that level. I do my best nowadays, but there's just something about just being alone with literally just millions of acres around you. And I remember one time just sitting on a log or a rock or something like that, eating a sandwich or whatever, and just watching the wildlife go by, like just sitting there, and all of a sudden a moose comes by and you're like, oh my God, it's a moose, just cruising by, or, seeing bears off in the distance playing and doing their thing. And, and bears were very often where I lived, and they'd come into like the neighborhoods where black bears, not grizzly bears, but black bears. And, they were just like a kind of there goes a bear.
There's another one.
There's another one. But getting to see them do their thing and just seeing them in their natural environment, you just get this like appreciation for nature and wilderness that you just like, that's just indescribable, you know, and like, you almost hate to be a hunter, you know, just because you're like, man, this is just so beautiful, you know, and just, I hate to disrupt it or do anything like that. And probably just because I'm, you know, like I said, I'm much older now and I'm getting soft in my old age that I just, you know, I find more enjoyment of just sitting on a stump and just seeing what happens. And then even if it's a stupid squirrel, you know, I'll be like, oh, I saw a squirrel today, you know, and being excited about it.
Absolutely.
You know? So, I did all the things that you would expect: hiking, camping, snowmobiling, snowboarding. I was huge into snowboarding growing up. I had the, you know, season pass up to the mountain. Now it's called like Whitefish Mountain Lodge or whatever. Back then it was called Big Mountain. Had this season pass up there, and pretty much every waking moment that I had an opportunity to get up there, I'd be up there. And so, I mean, warm weather, -30. I mean, I'm up on the mountain, snowboarding, hiking, breaking trail, you know, going off trail and getting that fresh powder and hitting the trails and stuff. And I mean, I was fairly decent. I could hold my own, so I could go into the black diamonds, you know, the expert level runs and hitting the cliffs and everything like that. So my friends and I, we would often, there was certain points on the mountain that they were like no-go zones, but the people knew that people go there just because it was just the perfect runs that, you know, just when you want that perfect run, like that's what it is. It's now since become a run, which kind of takes away, in my opinion, kind of takes away from that majesty. But back then, you know, we're having to like snowshoe into these areas and hike while carrying, you know, backpacks with our snowboards and everything to get to the ridge, and then snowboard down the bowl back down to the chair, and stuff. And so those were pretty good memories and good times. And then Glacier Park, hiking to the glaciers and snowboarding on the glaciers. That was really fun. Knowing what I know now about glaciers, probably not the smartest thing, but back when you're a teenager and you're like, this is awesome.
You don't care.
You're not thinking about a glacier collapsing and then you're falling into a glacier cave and, you know, dying. You're just, I'm going to hike to the top of this glacier and cruise down. But like I said, knowing what I know now, probably wouldn't recommend that. And then ending up in Alaska and doing the same thing, just hiking up, different areas. I couldn't stand, it got to the point where I couldn't stand going to actual resorts because there was just so many people that I would find my own way, and I'd either snowmobile, I'd have someone drop me off at the top, or I'd hike through the snow to get to the top. And I mean, I was in much better shape back then, but it was still a pretty gruesome, I mean, knee deep, waist deep snow sometimes trying to hike up there because I wasn't smart enough for snowshoes. I just, you know, 15-year-old kid, just, whoa.
I can do this.
I can do this. And 2 days later, you're like, oh my God, I hate my life so much. And then it's a 10-minute ride down and you're like, I don't know if that was worth it or not. but looking back, you're like, yeah, it was worth it. It was worth it. Could have died.
Memories.
You know? Yeah. So avalanche, bears, who knows, you know, something. But it was memories. But yeah, did all that stuff and hung out on the lake. There was a really big lake, Flathead Lake, where I grew up. Would end up on the lake, swimming, fishing, whatever. I really enjoy fishing. I suck at it, but I really enjoy fishing. Go out, get some trout, or a kokanee or whitefish or something, and then having the fish fry. Oh, I love doing the fish fries. We go out and get a little perch, right off the bank, and then have ourselves a little fish fry. I really enjoy doing that.
Sounds delicious.
Oh yeah. Those were enjoyable memories.
What's the one that kind of stands out to you? Like when you said that you would always go out with your dad and stuff when you were a kid, like what's a memory that just stands out to you, that whether it was something exciting, fun, scary?
So we just moved to Montana, right? Mm-hmm. I'm 9 years old, whatever, 8, 9, whatever. And my dad's taking me fishing for the first time. And we had to hike to get to this lake. We had to park and then we had to walk to the lake, right? And so we're walking, and my dad, who, you know, born and raised in Montana, he's telling me about rattlesnakes. And he's like, all right, now when you hear a rattlesnake, you're going to hear a shh sound, right? He's like, that's them letting you know that you're encroaching on their area. And he's like, you just stop, slowly back out, and we'll find a different route, right? He's teaching me about rattlesnakes and whatever. And all of a sudden, as soon as he gets done talking, you're, shh, and he goes, run! And we just,
What happened to slowly backing away?
So that's a funny memory. Another fun memory was it was when I was in high school, and I was going to a friend's house, and I mentioned I lived on that wildlife refuge. On the other side of that, on the other side of the mountain, there was a neighborhood, and one of our friends lived up there. And I remember driving down the switchbacks, and I come across, and it's nighttime, right? And my headlights hit this black animal. I'm thinking it's just a big dog, whatever. So I'm like, hey, get out of the road, bam, 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 honking my horn, whatever. And all of a sudden it stands up, and it's a bear. And I'm like, never mind, like, carry on. And I just had to sit there and wait for the bear to do its thing.
Mosey along and get out of my way. So, like I said, bears were all over the place all the time. So that was one instance of running into a bear. Fairly close. I was like, lock the door and hope for the best. Yeah. A great childhood, man. It's like a lot of kids don't even get out of their house nowadays, or go ride their bike. And it sounds like you spent the majority of it, like a lot of the people that we're having on the show, it's outdoors and learning from nature. And
yeah, I hate that I took it for granted. I go and visit now, and it's just like I went back this last summer, and going to Glacier Park. I took my daughter to Glacier Park. I'm like, I grew up here. I never walked this trail, to Avalanche Lake. Like, I've been to Glacier Park dozens of times, never walked this trail. I never took the time to actually do this, because I would just go straight to Logan's Pass and hike to the glaciers. That's all I wanted to do. But I never took the time to actually hike and see the sights. And I mean, it literally brought tears to my eyes, like taking advantage of it this last summer with my daughter, and she's like, yeah, it's pretty. But I'm just sitting there just taking it all in and literally like getting emotional about it, like how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have understood that at a much younger age, taking in more advantage of it, because the way the world is going now and growing, I don't know how much longer you'd be able to take advantage of that stuff,
Yeah. But at least now it's something that, like you said, it's important getting out there, experiencing it with your daughter, and making sure that she has these memories as well. So,
yeah, whether she likes it or not.
Exactly. Yep.
Like, how long's the hike? 6 miles.
Yep. Been there before.
Complain the whole time.
Yep. So how long were you in Montana? Were you there all the way through high school, or did you guys end up moving away, or?
No. So when we moved there, I was there through graduation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't move away until 2004. So it was about 11 so years, I guess, that I lived there. I've lived in Kentucky longer than I lived in Montana, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But because you think, your whole life was in Montana, and you're like, no, I was only there for like 11 or 12 years or whatever. And I've been in Kentucky 15.
We're that old now, man.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So what did we do after high school?
So, so in high school, 9/11 happened, and I just followed suit with my peers and enlisted. Initially, I enlisted into the reserves under the agreement that, because when 9/11 happened and I wanted to enlist, I wasn't 18, so I needed parental signature, and I was like, I just want to go fight. I just want to serve, right? So. The agreement was for my dad to sign the papers, for my parents to sign, was that I go to college. I go to college and I do ROTC and I go the officer route, right? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll do it. So I enlisted, went to basic training, everything, was in the reserves, was in college. And I remember sitting there in math class, freshman year, I think like second semester, midterm. I remember I was in math class taking it and realized I'm like 18 now, right? I don't need parental permission. And I'm like, I'm going to miss the whole daggum war sitting here. So I put my pencil down and I walked out the door. And I went to my recruiter and I was like, I want to be an airborne ranger and I want to learn a second language. And he goes, well, Rangers don't offer language training, but Special Forces does. And I go, what's that? And so I watched the recruiting video for Green Berets, and I was like, that looks awesome.
That's where they get you.
Yep. I'm like, that looks awesome. Let's go and do that. And so I was in the reserves all of like 6 months. And then I went back to Benning for infantry training and airborne training. And then I ended up in Fort Bragg going through the special ops preparation course, the early days when they weren't a part of TRADOC and they could literally like kill you and nobody would blink an eye. You know, no, there was no oversight and whatever. It was just hell and awful and painful.
Cross your fingers, hope you survive.
Basically. I mean, I got trench foot. I was losing toenails. I mean, the Alice packs was like digging meat off of my back. I got in really good shape. I got really good training on like land nav because that's all we did was ruck and land nav. Day and night, I mean, a mile plus in between points. Which, you know, to from my experience nowadays is like unheard of. Like you're talking a couple 100 meters between points. And it's like, well, hell, I can see the point pretty much at that. No, I'm talking like you have your box and your point's over here and your next point's down here and you're going like 15K to get there over under through terrain, you know? So I got really good training with land nav, but I sucked at it really bad. And I would get lost all the time. And so I got really accustomed to just being in the middle of nowhere going like, I don't know.
Looking around, trying to find something that looks
like,
familiar.
Yeah. And it's like, what's my emergency azimuth again? and so I needless to say, I did not make it because I was really bad at land nav. So I found myself waiting to get reassigned into an infantry unit. And a part of me was like, thank God, because, you know, I'm like an 18-year-old kid getting my butt kicked.
Yeah.
I mean, talking to kids, when I got to be an instructor and they're going through SOPSI and they're telling me about like the worst smokings they ever got, I'm like, let me tell you something. I got smoked. I watched the sun come up, the sun go down, and then the sun go up before they stopped. The instructors were like taking shifts and it was just like, okay, we're gonna go run 5 miles, and now we're gonna do log PT, and now we're gonna do rifle PT, and now we're gonna do this. And I mean, it just got to the point where you're just like, I can't move. And every 6 hours or whatever, they're like, anybody want to quit? And people would just be like lining up, just like, I'm like, the hell with this, you know? And my stupid self just was like, I'm not quitting. And but a part of me was like, thank God that's over, right? So waiting to get assigned. I'm still on Fort Bragg, waiting to get assigned to an infantry unit. They just started a brigade combat team up in Alaska, an airborne unit up in Alaska, the 4th Brigade, 25th Infantry. And so they came down and they're like, you, blah, blah, you're all going to Alaska. And
what was your thought at that time?
I was like, well, that sucks. You know, I'm thinking Alaska, like igloos, right? Like what the hell's in Alaska? There's nothing in Alaska, right? Much to my surprise, like Alaska's actually like a lot more built up than people realize. Yeah. I landed in Anchorage and I was like, holy crap, like this is the biggest
not what
city
you were expecting.
No, I'm like, coming from Montana, I'm like, this is the biggest city I've ever seen, you know? Almost like Seattle. I've been to Seattle, but you know, it was almost to that level, you know? But anyways, so I ended up in Alaska in the winter, which tripped me out because I landed and it was dark. And I went to the hotel and I went to bed, woke up the next day and it was still dark. I looked at my time and I'm like, what day is it? You know, like I thought I was only asleep for a couple hours. And they're like, no, it's the next day. This is just how it is. The sun doesn't come up until like 1. And I'm like, this is wild, man. Like the sun's up for like 2 hours a day. I'm like, this is weird. But anyways, but I found myself in the infantry unit there and just did a lot of Arctic training and Arctic survival, going out into the sticks there and doing field training exercises, snowshoeing out or cross-country skiing out and, you know, making snow shelters and cold bagging where every year we had to do a cold bag certification where once it got to about, you know, 3 feet of snow, whatever, you just go out and it was just right on the front lawn of the company area. Just go out and clear some snow, lay your sleep pad down and put your sleeping bag in and crawl in your sleeping bag and sleep under the stars. No shelter. You're just in basically a little ditch that you dug into the snow, and you just sleep there for the night. And so definitely got a lot of experience in the Arctic and operating in an Arctic environment, whether it be, like I said, like snowshoeing, ruck marching, but also like just Arctic survival. We had to go through an Arctic survival training every year where, the hypothermia prevention, body temperature management, heat management, right? How to make fires in the snow, how to make shelters in the snow, how to signal in snow, how to do all these things, right? So we had to do that every year. And little to my, not realizing that is building up to today, to where, we get a little bit of snow out, and I'm like, well, hell, I'm from Montana and Alaska. Like, snow doesn't scare me. And then my experiences between Montana and Alaska, I'm like, yeah, it's cold, but we'll be fine, right? I know we talked about, it's like, yeah, you'll be fine, but will you be comfortable? I was like, I think getting to that age where I'd rather be comfortable than, I can manage this.
Yep, hurts a little bit more nowadays.
Yeah, we'll take advantage of a little bit of technology these days. But like back then, all I had was a poncho, and stringing up a lean-to or something against some trees and crawling. I remember falling asleep one time. There was no snow on the ground, and I found this spot in a tree, and the roots created this nice little bowl, just perfect for me to lay in. So I take my sleeping bag, I throw it in, and nestle up against this tree, and I just lay my poncho around, wrap it around the tree, and just lay it down, right? And so I crawl in, and I sleep. Man, I slept like a baby, man. That was a good night's sleep. It was just perfect, kind of like hugged me all night, right? And then when I woke up and I took my poncho and went whoosh, like 2 feet of snow. So people are coming out of their sleeping bags like, oh my God. And there's like, I'm warm and toasty, and I'm like, oh, that sucks, But I mean, it's so many times just being out and with a poncho and a sleeping bag in a sleep system and having, sub-zero temperatures and all this stuff and just minimal gear. But I mean, that's just the way it was. And operating in that environment, shoot, move, communicate in that environment, which is very challenging, but not impossible. Anyways.
Winter survival is kind of usually known for, like, I mean, when people take the classes, it's known as one of your harder classes just because there is so much more that you have to worry about. With you actually having training in Arctic areas and stuff like that, what would you say is probably the most important thing that you pulled from that you'd be able to pass on to people that, are wanting to get better when it comes to cold temperatures?
So I would say a common error that I see some people fall into is the cold weather gear. They bundle up and then they get to moving versus layering properly and that core temperature management. And for example, when we go training up there, we have our JROTC and we have our uniforms and we have our fleece jackets and we have our, our whoopee jackets and we have all these warm snivel gear, right? All this warm weather gear. But when we're moving, we strip down to the bare minimum.
Not gonna start sweating.
Right. So we have just on our basically our thermal pants, thermal top, and then we have our JROTC pants, JROTC jacket, balaclava mittens and whatever, and we move for miles, whatever, right? And then when we stop, that's when we start bundling up, right? And then when it's time to do the work, we take it off. Because the worst thing that you can do, of course, is sweat in that environment. And then you get that evaporation and your core temperature plummets because you have that sweat, and as the convection, when the air running over it evaporates and cools your core temperature drastically and immediately, and that's when you get like frostbite and hypothermia and such. So that's one. But then also a skill that I was able to take out of there was how to work with gloves on.
Kind of hard.
What's that?
It's kind of hard.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But I remember working on setting up a tent, and I took my gloves off, and my squad leader just like, no, put your gloves back on. It's like -10, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, put your gloves on.
Doesn't
you
take
have to
long
learn
for
how
frostbite.
you have to learn how to do this with gloves on. And so being able to tie knots and rig things with those big mittens on was very challenging, but learning how to do that was very invaluable to protect yourself. Because you're absolutely right. You get contact, frostbite, whatever. So the layering aspect and being able to do the fine motor skills with gloves is invaluable in that environment.
Absolutely.
So I emphasize whenever it's cold out, go learn how to make a fire wearing big gloves, because obviously there's some obstacles that come with that. Tie knots with it. Just try to do your basic functions wearing your cold weather gloves, your cold weather gear.
Yeah. Just like everything else, practice until you got it done.
That's it.
Yep. So how long were you in Alaska?
So I was in Alaska for about 5 years, 4.5, 5 years. Did one deployment with them to Iraq. Ended up in the Anbar province, which...
What year was this?
That was 06. 06 and 07. And we were right outside of Fallujah in a place called Al Karma. And we were supposed to only be there for like a month or two. But then they started fitting us for air conditioners and stuff. And like, we're not going to be here for a month or two. We were there for like 6 or 7. And it was just hell the whole time. Between IEDs and RPGs and snipers and everybody. It was like, now keep in mind that not that long ago, they just stood up this brigade combat team. We didn't even have a full year of training. And we get thrown into Iraq and we get thrown into this hornet's nest, basically. Not saying that we were like, unprepared, but because we had a bunch of capable leaders, right, who have had combat experience and stuff. But the most of us were just like, oh my God, and we get thrown into this hornet's nest. And now it's like, we would say we were up against the varsity. We're like the JV playing against the varsity. It felt like at sometimes, because we were just on our heels the whole time.
Yeah.
They let us the insurgents kind of let us get settled in and everything and get comfortable. And then all of a sudden it was like, there was times when we didn't eat. We didn't get supplies because they would hit our convoys bringing in food and mail and supplies and whatever. So like you're literally surviving off of like Otis Spunkmeyer muffins and beef jerky, right? And you're still having to perform and patrol and these operations. I lost like 30 pounds, I got real skinny, just from all of that operations, but also like the lack of nutrients because we weren't getting anything. And then we would hit IEDs all the time. I got hit by so many freaking IEDs. One to put me in the hospital. One got me.
What happened?
So we were just doing a routine patrol, going to check on some like the electrical minister, some crap, whatever. One of the leaders in this district area, right? And I was the gunner. I'm just chilling, doing the thing, and we noticed that it's really quiet and there's nobody around. But we're like, it's probably because it's early in the morning, kind of thing. Because it was early in the morning, probably just not up and moving yet. And man, all I remember was just it felt like the truck got lifted up, everything went black, and came crashing down. And I remember just getting tossed around I was the gunner, right? And I got tossed around. And I just remember just kind of sitting there going, holy crap. I've been hit by IEDs before, but nothing like that. It just, IED goes off and you're just kind of like from the debris, This one was like, oh my God, we got hit, and I remember the lower half of my body was just numb. And so I thought like I got ripped in half, right? And I'm sitting on, my arms are on top of the Humvee right here, right? My head poking up. And I'm just kind of sitting there just going like, I can hear screaming, I can hear all these things, right? And I'm like, you always wonder what would happen if you get put in that situation, right? Yeah. Where you thought you're dying, or would you cry, would you scream? I remember just sitting there and I'm going, really? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I was like, is this it? Am I dying? Am I going to die? Like, is this the day? And it just felt so unfair, mm-hmm. And I just started thinking of my parents, I wasn't married or anything at the time. I was just thinking of my parents, and I'm like, my God, like, I can't believe I'm putting them through this. Like, I'm so sorry that they have to go through this, whatever. And then something about it was just like, something in my head was like, come on, guy, like, get up, you know, and I'm like, all right. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wiggle my toes. I'm like, okay, I can wiggle my feet. So my feet are still there, right? And so I'm like, okay. So I reach down and I'm like, okay, my legs feel good. I don't feel any pain. Everything's still there. I don't feel anything. But what really hurt was over here. And that was the last place I checked. I'm checking everywhere. And I'm like, okay, just like a little bit of blood, nothing big deal, right? This was the real one because this was the one that really hurt. And so finally I was just like, and I realized I was still in one piece. And so I was like, oh, okay, good. We're good. So I got myself out. But I mean, I ended up taking a bunch of shrapnel up the left side of my leg. And I ended up taking a piece of shrapnel about yay big into my side. My Kevlar, it broke through the plate.
Holy cow.
They just came out with the side plates. And the side plate broke, but that Kevlar mesh, it slowed it down enough to where that Kevlar was able to slow it down. And it fused in with it, so it didn't actually penetrate, but it broke skin and it bruised and cracked ribs and did all these things, right? And I just remember getting out of the truck, and my team leader, who was the driver, was yelling for help, whatever, and I got down there and I helped him out. The steering column was like on him.
Were you guys, I'm sorry to interrupt, but were you guys the only vehicle in the convoy, or there was multiple?
There was like 4, but there was the platoon leader and the RTO and the interpreter and stuff like that. And I remember bullets going around. So so they were engaged, and the medics trying to get people, whatever. And I know when I'm explaining it, it seems like a lot of time's passing, but this is just a matter of like it's actually happening in real time, really fast. But my team leader's like pinned under a steering column inside the truck. I have to come in through the back of the truck and grab him and pull him. And as I'm doing it, like his arms like raw, and he ended up getting like real bad nerve damage. Fortunately, like the worst of it was me and him, and he had nerve damage in his arm, which ultimately led to the amputation of his pinky, and then me. He and I were the worst of it. Thank God, because that truck was blown into like 4 pieces. So how we came out of that as relatively unscathed, is beyond me. But I just remember that after that, it was like, all of a sudden it just came into like, who did it? Like, who pulled that trigger, right? And the people tell me after the fact, like, you were standing out in that street, eyes this big, I'm black, covered from the soot, smoke, debris, and whatever. The blast had blown my pants off too. So like they're hanging on like a loincloth with my belt, right? And I'm in the middle of the street with my body armor and my loincloth, basically, with my rifle, just kind of like, who did it, right? Who's getting it? And they're trying to get me to the medic, and I'm throwing people off me because I'm like determined to find who did this, so I can like, tell him I'm very angry.
Exactly.
Right? And then finally I collapsed I coughed up a bunch of blood and collapsed. And once I saw the puddle of blood that I coughed up, I was like, okay, well, I'm ready to go. Which actually leads to like one of my favorite war stories, right? We get to Camp Fallujah, and I'm in the ward, right? And this was the following day. No one had come to visit me, nothing, right? I'm literally by myself. Everybody else had been moved or took back to the unit, whatever. I'm literally by myself in this room, just like watching Iraqi TV because they or AFN or whatever. And this general comes in. I guess he was like the base commander or something like that. He comes in and he's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" I'm hooked up to all these tubes and whatever. He's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And I told him what happened and whatever. And he's like, "Can I get you anything?" And I'm like, keep in mind, like I've been eating muffins and beef jerky and like whatever I can scrounge for like the last several weeks at this point. And he's like, "Hey, it's about lunchtime. Can I get you anything?" I was like, "Oh my God, yes."
Glad you asked.
Let me tell you what I want, right? I'm like, I want some hot dogs, the cheeseburgers, some onion. I want it all. The whole short order line, the whole fat boy line. I want it all, man. I want it all. And he's like, "Well, I'll see what I can do." And sure enough, like he comes back like an hour later with these to-go boxes. One's full of hot dogs, one's full of cheeseburgers, one's full of onion rings. like a tear coming to my eye, like, oh my God, I get to eat.
This is the best hot dog ever.
This is the best food I've ever had. And I'm sitting, so I sit up in the bed and I grab a hot dog and get it set up, and he's eating with me, right? And which I thought was kind of cool. And I eat the hot dog, and this guy has the audacity to go, those will kill you.
Military humor, man.
Oh, I know. And I'm sitting there and I'm hooked up to all these tubes. I'm like, I'm not worried about that. So that's a fun memory.
Yeah. So how long were you over there?
So we were supposed to be there for 12 months. And I remember the moment that, and I remember at one moment, I was on the satellite phone with my dad, and all of a sudden, you're boom, and the sky starts filling with tracers. And I'm like, gotta go. And run, put on my gear, and get to the Humvee. And it's just sitting, I was driving, just sitting there waiting for the word. Like,
now, how long was this after you got hurt?
This was several months.
Okay.
So
you were fully healed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was only off for like a month.
Okay.
And then I was back at it. So this was, so that was like in January. And this was probably like April, May, whatever. So this was several months later. The fighting season had definitely picked up. But yeah, so I was sitting there, in the Humvee, just like, what's going on kind of thing. Cause we didn't get hit. Someone else got hit. And squad leader jumps into the truck like, hey, our sister company over there took a V-bid and they're under fire. There's casualties. Yada, yada. We got to go get them. Right. And so we're like, okay. And he goes, oh, by the way, we got extended. So I was there for like 14 months. And I look at, and when I reflect on it, I feel like such a wuss, because I'm thinking of like World War II veterans, like they were there until they died or got hurt or the war was over. I'm there for a year and I'm complaining. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like when every day you're like, I could die. Like every step I take, I can literally die. I'm living like that for like a year. You're just like, oh my God, I'm so over this.
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, so I got back in just before Thanksgiving in 2007.
Okay. Where'd we go from there?
Well, shortly thereafter, I met my future wife. I was getting leadership opportunities in the infantry, but it just didn't work out. I went to Ranger School, didn't work out. They thought that I was a big old fat quitter, so they fired me from my team leader position, even though like so what happened was I got LASIK, because during my time in Iraq, I was wearing the glasses, they'd fog up, they'd whatever. I'm like, these things are going to get me killed. So I took my deployment money, because the Army didn't pay for it back then. So I took my deployment money and I paid for LASIK surgery. And apparently you had to be on profile for so long after LASIK surgery.
Yeah, and you weren't?
No, my PA blessed me to go to Ranger School. So I go to Ranger School and I'm waiting to do the PT test. And they're like, when did you get LASIK done? And I was like, this day. And they counted the days and it was like day 88 of like a 90-day profile, like all of 2 days. And the PA was like, nah, he's got to go back to his unit. I'm like, they're not going to send me back, like that's the dumbest thing ever. But anyways, I went back. They thought I was a big old fat quitter. So I lost my team leader position and I just became that guy, and I went back to being a saw gunner, and went back to just being treated like a regular Joe, and I was just, and it's just like my pride was just so hurt.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the SF recruiter was there, and I was like, here's everything I got. What else do you need? And they're like, we just need a PT card. And I walked into the platoon sergeant's office, which was like, you don't do, right? Unannounced. I just walked right in, grabbed the PT binder, looked for my card, pulled it out, put it back. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to selection. And I walked out and was fast-tracked to the next selection class. I'm like, what are you doing in selection? You're just going to land nav and run and ruck and do all. I do that anyways. I'm a paratrooper.
Whole lot more than that.
Yeah. But I was like, I'm a paratrooper though. Like I got better at land nav. I got a lot better at it, and the rucking and everything. The physical aspect I wasn't overly concerned about because I was in fairly decent shape, right? So I went to selection, and it was rucking and land. It was definitely those things, but like it's such a much bigger scale, and it was like, oh my god. But I did go in, and I was like, they put you in a big room, right? And the commander comes in and says, okay, everybody stand up. You half sit down. You half are going to quit, right? Now the remainder of you guys standing up, like half of you sit down. You guys are going to get involuntarily withdrawn. And then the rest of you, half of you sit down, right? You guys aren't going to make it, right? And I was like, oh my God, this attrition rate is ridiculous, right? But I made the commitment. I was like, no matter what happens, I'll be standing at the end. I'm not going to let this beat me, right? And so I went to every event because one, I believed that it was the best option for my family to have a better life, more opportunities professionally, and better pay because there's a lot more pay that comes with it.
Of course.
And then the job assignments, the deployments. I just thought it was all in all just the better opportunity for my family. And then also I did not want to go back from whence I came and have to deal with that, especially if I didn't. Again. Yeah, especially if I didn't get selected. Like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine. A guy literally told me as I was leaving, he goes, "It'll be in your best interest for you to get selected."
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm gonna do everything I possibly can. And so I pushed myself, and by the skin of my teeth, man, I made it. At that last day, I was beaten up. I was so tired, and so hungry. And you're sitting there, and they're like calling off. They're like, when I call your roster number, step outside, and they're calling off the roster numbers, and you're seeing these big beefy dudes, right? And they're leaving. They're like, oh my God, like I don't think I made it because those guys are studs, right? Yeah. I don't think I made it. And then they do the whole speech, and they're talking like you did make it. They're like, hey, thanks for coming. Really appreciate you being here. And you start getting like, oh man. And then all of a sudden they just go, hey, we hope you come back because you all got selected. And you're like, you son of a bitch. Like, you just start crying because you're so happy. You're like, you tricked me. And so, yeah, so by the skin of my teeth, I made it. But I went back to my unit, and they were prepping to go to Afghanistan. And I'm like, not me. I got selected. I'm going to the Q course. And it takes like a 4-star general to renege on that, right? Which they're not going to get a 4-star general to say no. So anyways, so I go in, I'm like, I'm not going to Afghanistan with you people. I'm going to the Q course. And then like a week later, they're like, you're getting med boarded. I'm like, because I lost hearing in my right ear from all the explosions and everything. They're like, yeah, you come back from Iraq. They're like, you have significant hearing loss. And it's like, well, no shit.
Yeah.
And so they're like, yeah, you're being med boarded. Like, so like for a year I had to fight that because it was like, I'm like, I want to stay in. And they're, what? Like they had a check in hand. They're like, yeah, here's your check. Here's your paperwork. You'll be out here tomorrow. But I want to stay. You what? Yeah, I had to get a lawyer, all sorts of stuff. I had to appeal to the med board, which was like in Tacoma or something like that. So I had to do like a virtual call in, and I had to have a representative there to represent me. I had to get all these like letters of recommendation. I had to contact the SWIC, the Special Warfare Center in school, saying that they'll accept me
with the hearing loss,
with the hearing profile, right? And I had to get all these things together and submit it to the board, and they granted it.
That's good.
They're like, okay, yeah, but just keep in mind that if you fall below this threshold, like we will not save you. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So anyways, so I was granted to stay. It took almost a year to go through that whole process. But it was good because I got to see the birth of my daughter. I got to be there for that, which was great. And then shortly after, like a month after she was born, I was in North Carolina getting ready to go to go through the qualification course.
Yeah.
And then the rest is, and I guess the qualification course, man, like, that sucked.
Of course.
Yeah, that was hard, man. There was a lot of days where, you're just like, why am I here? Do I deserve to be here? There's some studs here, right? And like, I was by no means a stellar candidate.
I mean, that's one of the things I figured out when I was in. It's usually the guys that are going to make it that you least think that is going to do it. It's you watching guys that you're like, oh yeah, that's that kind of guy, and then they're dropping out.
Yeah, there was a bunch of that.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of people that are quitting, and you're like, why are you quitting? Yeah, one PL, he quit, and it was like, why? Like, we haven't even done anything yet. And it's like, oh, well, family this and family that, whatever, and I get it. And I get it, but I'm just like, so I get asked years later, like, what's the difference between a special forces guy and a regular Army guy? And I said, we're too stupid to quit. And, when things hurt, people go, I'm done. And we're like, nah, we'll be fine. You're missing a leg. It's just a flesh wound,
Exactly.
Like, that's us. We're those knuckleheads. So anyways, going through, small unit, the language school was easy. I learned French, came very easy. I was very good at it. I scored very well at it. The PT tests, I did fine. I remember one time we were doing a ruck run or a ruck march assessment, and my instructor was like, "You better hurry up, Russell." And I'm standing right by. I'm like, "I'm right here." And he's like, "Oh, who's that?" I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like, "I'm right here." Anyways, I did fine on all that stuff. But once we got out into like small unit tactics and having to move and communicate in these like teams and whatever, I think I did fine because of my infantry background. Like, I knew how to do battle drills. I knew how to do all this stuff. I think it was just like politics I had such an issue with, because you get peered.
Always the hardest part.
Always the hardest part. You get peered. Who are we peering? You got to rank all of your peers. And I'm not a political guy. I don't schmooze with people. You know what I mean? I do my job, and that's it. So I'd always get peered low. And I'm sure I rubbed some people the wrong way. But I hated those counseling days, because it's like, yeah, here's all your pink cards. And they're like, oh my God, what did I do this time? It's like, oh, he didn't carry the 240. But like, they wouldn't let me. Like, I'd be like, hey, let me carry that. And they're like, no, we got it. And then they give me a pink card for it. I'm like, that's stupid, and anyways, so I'm like, I'm pretty sure. So I comment that I got through all these things because someone just rolled a Dungeons and Dragons dice, and it was just like, roll a 20 or whatever, and like, yep, there it is. So he passes. But I did well academically. I passed all my tests with flying colors. Every assessment I ever had, like, I did fine. I just think it was like the politics of with your peers and stuff like that. That was just killing me the whole time. And not that I'm a bad guy to work with or anything like that, but like I said, I don't politic. I don't schmooze with people. I don't like doing that. I feel icky doing that. I feel fake, And obviously it didn't hurt me because I went straight through the whole course. Again, Dungeons and Dragons dice.
Yep.
My favorite part of the course, though, was SEER school. Going through SEER school, I was so nervous about SEER school, because you see movies, you hear the stories, you see the pictures of like,
we're gonna get tortured.
Oh my God, I'm gonna get waterboarded. I was like, I'm just terrified of SEER school, and then going through it, yeah, you get beat up and all this stuff, but I came out of there. I wouldn't do it again. Let's just be clear on that. But looking back, that was probably my favorite course I had ever gone through in the military. Not only did I learn a bunch of cool stuff, like you go out into the survival portion. It's like, yeah, here's how that's when they start starving you, right? 1 meal a day. But then they're like, here's how you fish, here's how you hunt, here's how you trap, here's how you make these shelters, here's how you make fires, here's how you do everything. And every day, basically from like sun up to sundown, you're doing something survival related, right? You're out there making gill nets and putting them in, trying to catch fish, or you're noodling, or you're working on firecraft or signaling, making your ground to air signals, and you're practicing all this stuff, right? Because you're getting evaluated on all of it in order to progress. You're making tools, and then they grade you on your tools that you made. Your little camp hammer to, a fish spear to a gill net. They're like, okay, here's some tools. Let's look at your traps. Here's your triggers. Here's your figure fours. Here's all your traps. And And a lot of the traps that we learned were from like Viet Cong inspired. So you're looking at a lot of these like really like treacherous traps that can take down large game and people, right? And so they're assessing that, and they're like, yeah. They look at your shelter. You're making a debris hut and a hide site. They're like, yeah, that looks good, you know. All the way to the fire making. In the fire making, you're given a magnesium strip and a canteen cup with water, and you have 5 minutes to get that boiling. And go, you know, in 5 minutes you're and trying to get this thing going. You're blowing on it, trying to get the flames up, and I mean 5 minutes to get a cup of water boiling. You know, it's pretty challenging. I guess nowadays there's courses where they're like 10-minute fire. You know, 10 minutes is challenging for people. We had to do it in 5, and that was challenging. But looking back, man, like it taught me so much about myself and what I can endure and what I could handle. I mean, going out on evasion, people are chasing you, and you're having to like, you know, you're given a map. So now you're doing land nav, but you don't know where you are. So you have to like look at this map and terrain associate and do, you know, resection and intersection to find where you are on the map and where you got to go. And then you got to find the best way to get there. Oh, by the way, they're chasing you with dogs, right? And you haven't eaten in a week and a half, and you have a canteen of water that you just drank an hour ago, and it's 95 degrees outside. So you're like, well, you're like, I can either just go straight here or I can go over here because I need water. So I go over here, I get water, and it's a swamp because it's tactical environment, right? So you're out there and you're doing a coyote well to sift through the water. You're doing that, pop an iodine tablet in, get to moving. The best thing I ever found in my life, though, is I found a persimmon tree and collecting all the persimmons up, throwing them in my pack and eating them as I'm going, whatever. That was a lifesaver. Finding roadkill and processing roadkill and putting that in your pack to cook and eat later.
They literally immersed you in a survival situation and said
they literally detain you. They detain you. They put you in handcuffs and they lock you in a room, and then you escape from there and you escape from this camp and you run for like a week. You're evading for like a week until they recapture you and put you back into prison, and then they beat the shit out of you for like a week. But yeah, no, you're fully immersed. You're not sleeping, you're not eating unless you capture something, right? You catch fish, whatever. I mean, like I said, roadkill. Like you're eating roadkill. You find a dead deer on the side of the road, and I mean, you're literally going up to it and you're like, what is salvageable on this? And you're just carving that away. And then as soon as you get to a fire, you're cooking the hell out of it, right? The persimmon trees, which was a lifesaver. Acorns. I mean, whatever you can scrounge up, man, just eating everything and anything that you could. And then the water, I mean, God, so much swamp, bog water, and so much iodine. And then digging holes in the ground to sleep and throwing a poncho over you to camouflage.
A little still shelter.
Yeah. And hide sites and everything while they're tracking you and looking for you, you know. And of course, once you get to your little spot, they kind of ease up, you know, and it's more of like, okay, you made it to this point. We're gonna stop chasing you, but you have to stay in this spot, right? And the instructor comes out like once every couple days, whatever, to check on you, make sure you guys aren't dead. And but up until that point, you're getting chased, and I mean, and then you get put into the prison camp, and you're so delirious at this point, you hadn't slept in like a week, you know, and you hadn't eaten but whatever you can scrounge for a week, and they give you a dog bowl of water to lap on, and then when they feel like you've had enough water, then they like beat you, like that's enough water, like and they're like, now here's a cup of rice, and you're just eating rice, and just being so thankful. It's crunchy, it's not even fully cooked, and you're like, oh, so good, like, and then when they feel like you've had enough rice, then they're like, okay, that's enough, and they're like, now we're gonna like submerge you into this pool of moldy, gross water, and you're gonna lay there naked. Like, this is the worst thing. It gets to the point where you're like, how long have I been here? And you're only there for like 2-3 days, but I remember like being there, and and I was pretty coherent for most of it. There were some people who were losing their minds, but I was pretty coherent for the whole thing because, you got some guy from Georgia with a Russian accent. I'm like, you're not fooling me, bud. Like, hey, comrade. Like, yeah, okay, Jethro. Like you're not fooling me, right? But then all of a sudden, like my brain was just like where am I? Like, what's going on? Like my brain just like flipped the switch from coherent to like, how long have I been here? And I'm like trying to retrace my steps. When was the last time I've eaten? And I'm like, I could have sworn I just ate. But my brain's like, no, you ate like a week ago. I'm like, no, that's not real. Like, that's not true. And so never would want to do it again. But it was like the best training I've ever received. Because after that, being in Afghanistan and other places that I've been to where it's like, I remember I went back to Ranger School and I remember like, oh, we're going to get smoked, or like, oh, we're going to be so hungry. And it's like, woo, like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You don't know what you're capable of doing until you do it. And being forced into that environment and being forced to operate with like nothing, it was like, yeah, I know I can at least survive this long with extreme minimal things. And so that was invaluable.
Absolutely.
And then progressing through the rest of the qualification course up into Robin Sage, which is a role-playing scenario where you infiltrate into a country and you link up with guerrilla forces and all these things, right? I mean, you're living in the woods, right? And so like we went through the Appalachia Trail for our infiltration. We hiked the Appalachia Trail. And I mean, we were one of those classes where we're on top of this ridgeline and a freak blizzard rolls in and we lose the trail. And then the batteries get sucked out of the GPS for our guide. We didn't have the GPS. Our guide had the GPS, the instructor guy, right? So his batteries got zapped. And we're literally on top of this mountain in a blizzard where snow is accumulating very rapidly. We have no idea where the trail is, And our guide, who has the GPS and the map, is like, this way? So it's like, well, we know we have to go back down the mountain at some point. So we just pick a spot and just start going down the mountain. And we just find a parking lot and we just called for help. And the guy came and picked us up. So that was adventurous. And from there, then we have to like hike from point A to point B. And, we set up a hide site or patrol base, or maybe there'd be like a old shack from the way back in the 1800s or whatever, and we'd camp out inside of that and hopefully don't get tetanus or bit by some rattlesnake or whatever, all the way up into the point where we got to our guerrilla base and we had to set up our little campsite, and our campsite just consisted of a tarp, like a 20-foot tarp, and we all slept under that. And oh, by the way, this is February, and so it's also snowing and freezing and no food whatsoever. And I got so mad one time because they went on a mission and they try to teach you about like tactical acquisitions, right? You go on an objective and you see a case of MREs, grab the case of nobody ever did. And I'm like, you didn't, why? Why didn't you grab? I mean, I'm so hungry. I'm literally like licking trash just for like some sort of sustenance. And I'm just devouring apples, or going out into the farm field and it's already been harvested, but it was like the feed corn, and finding just like a piece of feed corn with a couple kernels in it and just gross as all hell.
Whatever you can.
Whatever I could, man. Oh my God, I was so hungry. And then one day it was like one of their festival holidays, so they brought in a goat and they killed the goat. And man, I tore that goat up. The guy laughed at me. He's like, I know you've been hungry. So he's like, I saved you the neck, right? Man, I ate the crap out of that neck, man. I'd like breaking the vertebrae apart, like sucking the marrow out.
That's when you know you're hungry.
Oh my God, I was so hungry. So yeah, but again, I knew I could endure it because of what I learned in SEER school. But then even in that capacity, because we marched for like 5 days with like 120 plus pounds packs through the Appalachia Trail with like, again, whatever water we find and whatever food we could carry. And so it's like, well, what do you want to prioritize? You want to prioritize food or ammo, right? And well, you're always going to prioritize ammo, right? And so you're literally eating like half of an MRE a day, which is still 1,000 calories, but you're burning 9 million calories trying to walk up a mountain with a 125-pound pack on your back, and oh my God, it was off for like 5 days, right? And so, yeah, to say I was hungry was literally licking trash, trying to get anything I could. But like I said, that training was invaluable. It sucked super bad, but it was invaluable because again, my confidence level for what I could endure and what I could take on. I'm confident even now, obviously now, but even back then, like you can drop me off into anywhere and I'll be fine. I'm confident with my skills. You just give me a knife and a matchbook, and I'm like, I'll make it work.
And that's something that 98% of people don't know. Like they don't know how far they can be pushed and survive. So that's, like you said, it's an invaluable lesson for you to know that about yourself, saying, I know I can do this.
Mm-hmm. And it develops like such a level of confidence, and like I said, when the stressors hit you, like maybe not so much like in the woods, right? Because that's an extreme example. But like, let's say like, you're like, man, I'm not going to be able to eat today because of some reason, maybe bills, whatever, you overextended yourself. So like, I'm not going to be able to eat today. I'm like, you'll be fine. You can miss a meal. Hell, you can miss like 5 meals. You'll be fine. And it's not going to be enjoyable by any means, but you can do it, right? And so having that confidence that I don't know when my next meal is, but I know I'll be fine, and I can at least make it to that next meal, and still being able to accomplish your mission is having that level of confidence is definitely invaluable.
Absolutely. All right, man. We're going to take a break for a little bit. When we come back, we're going to get into your military experience after a Q course.
Okay.
All right.
Campcraft Outdoors is a camping and woodcraft gear manufacturer. When we're crafting products, it's literally a family endeavor. Every member of the family has their piece of the puzzle. All the products we make, we literally cut it by hand, we stitch it one stitch at a time. We're making it handcrafted in a hand-waxed format like they did 150 or 200 years ago. As a maker of handcrafted items, our greatest challenge to selling a traditional item online is the education that's involved. Knowing that I don't have to sacrifice the traditions of camping and woodcraft for modern technology is a wonderful feeling because it enables me to run a more successful business by saving me time, energy, and resources. My family feels a great sense of pride every time we stamp a logo on a product, knowing that we've brought something out of the past and enabled a customer in the modern age to use it for years to come.
All right, man. Back from the break. Where we finished off at, you're at a Q course. You got your long tab. Where do we go from here?
So I got assigned to 5th Special Forces Group at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which was great for me. Just they have an amazing history dating back to Vietnam and everything, and so and especially with the war in Afghanistan, the horse soldiers and everything. So being able to be, and I actually went to that battalion that was horse soldiers, and got to meet a lot of those guys and stuff. So I got immersed into this into 5th group and got to experience all that lineage and history and then get a part of it and start training with these guys and start just getting ready. Like I literally got on the team and they're like, yeah, we're deploying in like a month, right? We got to get trained up and we're heading out, right? It just go. And in order to prepare for that training, my first little shtick with my team, I was an engineer, sergeant, I should say. I was a Special Forces engineer. So I went from being in the infantry to now I'm the guy who's blowing stuff up, right? But our first little, we're getting ready to go to Afghanistan. So our first training is we're going down to Dahlonega, Georgia, with where the Ranger School is down there, the mountain phase, and we're doing a crash course in mountain phase of Ranger School, and learning all the mountaineering aspects, and then applying it into a little scenario-driven, unconventional, irregular warfare mission sort of thing, but having to getting thrown into the mountains there, and rock climbing and rappelling and buddy rappels and buddy climbs. And then wilderness first aid in that aspect, and how to build mechanisms to transport casualties on mountainous terrain when helicopters or whatnot can't get to you. And then of course just the basic, like just infiltrating and patrolling and the patrol base aspect and setting up shelter.
Tactical stuff.
The normal tactical stuff. So no fires because it's tactical, but setting up the patrol bases and hide sites in the swamp water. At least this time though, being in the mountains, it was mountain streams, so that was nice, cool, crisp mountain water. But we got excellent training with that. The ranger instructors there were fantastic. I mean, got to hang out with them all day and got to learn everything just absorb everything they could give us in how to operate in a mountainous environment. And took that training, of course, into future deployments, and especially in Afghanistan. And nowadays, just reapplying the little lessons that I've learned, teaching with my kids nowadays how to build these mechanisms and one-rope bridges for crossing rivers and whatnot, and flotation devices and all that good stuff. So anyways, I was on the same team for 5 years, and went to go be an instructor back at Special Warfare Center in school. I was the NCO in charge for SUT and SEER. I wasn't doing the actual instruction, but what I was doing was I was doing a lot of the administration stuff. I was higher up in rank and stuff. So, and I was, you had the kids that would go off and do the training, and they had the training element, right? And I was like the behind the scenes, like making sure paperwork and mom and dad's happy and all this stuff, right? But what I would get back from them, what I would get like recycles and whatever. And so those were the kids that I would really work with, and I would take the training that they're getting so then I can keep it really in line with what they're trying to learn, and say, okay, today we're going to work on recon. Today we're going to work on ambush. Today we're going to work on raid. Today we're going to work on fire making. Today we're going to work on whatever these kids are recycling or having trouble with.
You're making sure they're getting up to par.
Retraining, getting up to par, so when they go back out, they're more successful. And I had a very good success rate with that. Like I'd say 70 or 80% of the kids I worked with went back and was successful and would move on. And I mean, that's pretty common. Sometimes you just need a second look. And as long as you're coachable, I found that's really when I found out that I really enjoy teaching, to be honest. I don't like my time being wasted. And usually when people go into that realm, they go kicking and screaming. I don't want to be here. I want to be on a team. I want to go deploy. I want to go on missions. Which I did too. My team, my company was the first one into Syria when that kicked off. And I was like, yeah, tip of the spear, baby. And they're like, not you. You're going to go to SWIC. So I was pretty sad about that, I wanted to be with my boys. I wanted to be with my people.
Of course.
But, I'm not one to complain and sit and wallow in my own self-pity. I'd rather find solutions to my problem. And so I'm like, I don't like my time being wasted. So I'm like, hey, while I'm here, I'm gonna make the most of it. I'm gonna finish my degree, which I was getting my bachelor's at the time. I'm like, I'm gonna finish my degree. I'm gonna absorb as much of this professional development as I can. I'm gonna mentor and coach these guys who, not so long ago, I was in their shoes. And so I'm gonna give them the level of leadership that I wanted and that I received. And I don't want my time being wasted, so I invested a lot of time in these guys. And I went to all the teaching schools. I went to the special operations teaching course, the small group leadership course, the Army training course, whatever. All of the schools that I had to go to get certified to be a teacher in the military.
If they had it, you did it.
Right. And just so I can learn different, because I don't know how to be a teacher, and so I'm learning about these different teaching models and these different teaching methodologies and psychology of instruction and everything like that. And I was just like, hey, that's really fascinating. And then I'd go back and I would apply it and I would try different things and wherever. And I found out that I just really enjoyed being a teacher. I enjoyed giving my time, and they'd come up and be like, hey, Sergeant, I'm having trouble with this. So I'm like, all right, let's get out the little green army man and we talk about it, right? I just really enjoyed it. And so for me, that time was great. While people were like, I hate this place, I'm like, I think this place is great, Anyways.
You said a little bit ago, you said like you were learning skills that you took on future deployments. How many deployments did you end up doing total?
Like 5 or 6.
It's a lot, man.
Yeah. And we were like 6 months on, 6 months off. So when we weren't deployed, we were training, going into, different parts of the country and training things. So I've been in deserts, mountains,
all over,
swamps, all over, man. And so when I try to tell people, what are your, like, what's your credibility and stuff, it's like, I did it for like real, and because it was my job. And so I had to learn how to take these skills and apply it into all sorts of different terrains and environments and weather and all that. So yeah. And then like 5 or 6 deployments. I've been in a mixture of everything, doing a bunch of different, living in caves even, doing stuff. So yeah, but you have quite
the life for a little while, man.
Yeah, man, it was a wild ride, man. I don't regret it, but I was gone a lot. Had a lot of adventures, and really just an amazing time. And so when they were like, you're going to be an instructor, because like, again, when 9/11 happened, and 5th Group went into Afghanistan, and you see them on CNN or on horseback and all these things, you're like, yeah, those guys are awesome, right? And now I'm in this position, and they're like, yeah, your company is going to be, my team did the pre-deployment site survey in Kobani in Syria. And our company was supposed to be the first ones into Syria, to be first boots on the ground to occupy Syria. And I was like, yeah, my time has come. And they're like, not you though. So that was a big bummer. So, but I got to take all those skills and transfer it in now into an instructor role.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, this is what I was taught. This is what I learned. Here's a little tips and tricks, whatever, to help you be more successful. And like I said, I had like an 80% success rate. I think that's pretty good.
Absolutely.
And I prided myself on lessening the attrition rate. Because I understand that it's not cut out for everybody. I got it. But, sometimes somebody has a bad day.
Of course.
Somebody has a bad day, and sometimes somebody just gets dealt a bad hand. I don't think they deserve to be kicked out or lose their opportunity because they had a bad day. We all have bad days. Now, I'm not there on the ground with them, so I don't know the circumstances, but I had the philosophy of like, okay, you're a recycle. I don't consider you a failure. It was just more of like, okay, what do you need work on? Well, the sergeant out there said, I need to work on this. Like, great, let's work on that then. We're going to focus a whole day on that, and for like the next 4 or 5 weeks, we would just work on it, and then they'd get sent back out there, and they'd come back, and they'd be like, hey, thanks for working with me. I passed. I'm like, hey, good.
That's great. Amazing.
Yeah. And it was a big deal, and
something to be proud of.
Yeah. And I something you can hang your hat on, and I really enjoy, and I just really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the mentorship, the opportunity to mentor, the opportunity to take the skills that I've learned over the years and being able to share it with the next generation. I really just enjoyed it full-heartedly. But of course, I wanted to get back to my team, and I wanted to, I'm reading all the reports of all the great things that my people are doing, and I'm like, golly, I'm gonna miss the fun. I need to get with my boys, but God had other plans. In July 31st, 2017, I had experienced a widowmaker heart attack, and I just went out and I went for a run, and I was in really good shape too, as you can imagine. Fairly decent shape, not an Olympian by any means, but I was in fairly decent shape. I was out running, And I just felt this like tightness, right? And I was like, I guess I'm done, right? I'm done. I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna chill out, take a shower, whatever. And maybe an hour later, all of a sudden, it was just like, like, oh, you know, and called 911, and they took care of me, took me to the hospital, and they're like, yeah, you had a heart attack.
How old were you at the time?
Like 30, 31, something like that. And I'm like, what do you mean I had a heart attack? I'm so young.
I'm in shape. I'm military. Yeah.
And they kept asking me, they're like, are you on drugs? No, I'm not on drugs. They're like, you have to tell us. Like, I'm not on, like, we will find out. They're like, don't you lie to me. Are you on drugs? No, I'm not on drugs.
Thinking you were taking something performance enhancing or something like that.
Or meth or something, I don't know. Something that was stimulating to the point that like caused my heart to like, I don't know, die. And yeah, they're like, I was in the CCU, the cardiac care unit, whatever, crisis care unit, for like 2 weeks. And man, they'd come up and they're like, we think you have this. And so we'd go test. And be like, well, that wasn't it. We think you have this. And so we'd go test. Like, well, that wasn't it. And I signed a little waiver thing because they're like, we're going to make you a case study. This is because this is Duke University Hospital.
They couldn't figure it out. So like the case study is like 31-year-old male, heart attack for no reason, can't figure out why. So anyways, had the heart attack, and it was so humbling because I went from like running a 6-minute mile, and I can go run 10 miles, to I'd get winded walking to the bathroom. You know what I mean? And that was incredibly humbling and depressing. I bet.
And then, you know, going home on convalescent leave and going through cardiac rehab. I was on convalescent leave and cardiac rehab for like 4 months. And I mean, I knew my time in the military was coming to an end. Can't be a Green Beret if you have a bad heart, right? And
how was your wife handling all this? Because I'm guessing you guys were still together.
Oh yeah. She was in Kentucky and I was in North Carolina. So the doctor called her and she flew down, and one of my friends picked her up and took her to the hospital and everything like that. And of course my wife, you know, she's, I'm very blessed to have her. I mean, of course, anybody would have been a mess if that was your loved one right there, you know, and she was upset and whatever, but then, you know, then she got over it and whatever. And very blessed to have her there and take care of me. And she drove me home. I did my cardiac rehab in Kentucky, so I didn't have to stay in North Carolina. I could stay home with my family. And during that time, again, I realized that my military career was going to come to an end. And I have no idea what I'm going to do for the future. Everything I've ever known and everything I ever wanted to do is being taken away. And I would cry. I'd be driving to cardiac rehab crying. And just like, you know, I was like cursing at God. Like, why?
Of course.
Why? Why is this happening to me? Why is this the one thing that I'm like good at and I like makes me, my identity? Like, why is this being taken away? And I was like yelling at God. I was so angry at God. And like, I'd go to church and people would be like, oh, well, God has a plan for you. Blah, blah, blah. And I'd literally be in the middle of my driveway, like, whatever the your plan is for me, now would be a great time to tell me.
Yeah.
Because I'm terrified, right? Like literally like angry and just like rebuking God and all this stuff. I wasn't like a super huge believer. I believed, but I didn't understand. And I was just like, this isn't fair. And I'm literally crying on my way to cardiac rehab going, why is this happening to me? I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to live under a bridge. Am I going to be one of these veterans that kills himself? You know, because I can't hack it. I was applying to jobs. Nobody wanted me. I couldn't get an interview. I have a bachelor's degree in business. I spoke 3 languages. I've led thousands of people that I didn't even speak the same language. You know, I couldn't even get an entry-level position at some factory. And I'm just sitting there in my recliner looking out the window just going, what gives? What's the deal?
Why?
And man, that was such a hard time. And anyways,
I think that's one of the things. It's like us as men, we're supposed to be like the providers. And when that's taken away.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what though, what I noticed was there was a moment where I went to McDonald's, right? And I called my wife. I'm like, what does everybody want from McDonald's? She's like, just get the usual. What's that? I have no idea what the usual is. I have no idea what my kids like at McDonald's. And I realized that I have been so absent from my family's life that I couldn't even pick what they wanted at McDonald's.
Like you said, our identities are in the military. That's who we are. That's what we think about all the time.
And that crushed me. That I didn't even know, that I couldn't even order for my kids or my wife at McDonald's. And I'm like, oh my God, like it opened my perspective about how absent I was, and I didn't know anything about my family. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take this time that I'm home and I'm really going to learn about my family. And so I would try to do stuff with my family. I'd go have lunch with my kids at school. You know, you get invited, you're a visitor, you get to eat lunch with the kids, right, in elementary school. Get to be a little bit more active. I realized I did not have this relationship with my family that I thought I had. And trying to build a relationship with my family now is hard, right? And then, like I said, like I realized that my whole time in the military, because I was here, I was gone, I was here, I was gone, I had this like belief of this reality that everything was fine in just America in general. And then after that happened, and after that that little revelation at the McDonald's, of crazy as it sounds, I started looking around and I'm like, my God, there's so many like things going on. Like I realized that there's like people in my own community that, you know, don't have anything. You know, I realized that there's kids that don't eat unless they go to school and have free lunches or the breakfast and whatever. There's kids who don't even get clothes. And it broke my heart. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, there's so much going on. Like, how do I get involved? Because again, I'm a solution finder. I want to be a part of the solution. I don't want to bitch about a problem. I want to find a solution. So how do I get involved? So I started getting involved in nonprofits. I started working out like, what do you need me to do? Here, I'm going to donate. I don't have anything, but I'm going to like, here's $20. I'm going to donate $20. You know, I'll go hand out food for you. I'd go like to like luncheons and whatever, and there'd still be so much food left out. And I asked them like, hey, what are you going to do with all that food? I'm like, oh, we're probably just going to throw it away. And I'm like, no. Is it paid for? And they're like, yeah, it's paid for. I'm like, box them up. And I'd go around and find homeless people. I'm like, here you go, man, chicken dinner, right? And I found so much joy in that. And I found so much joy and so much purpose in that, that it went from like, that it just like rejuvenated my spirit, right? And I was like, man, that was something. And it got me open-minded enough to where I was like, okay, let's see where this goes, right? And I went to a revival. Because now I was like, okay, I feel what's going on, right? I feel this fire. Let's see what this is about, right? Because like I said, I believed, but like I was ignorant to it. So I went to this revival, and they had this preacher there. It wasn't my normal preacher. It was just a guest preacher. And he started talking, and like I was so enchanted by what he was saying. Like he was speaking directly at me and everything that I was experiencing and worrying about and all these things. And I'm like, holy crap, like this, like this is like talking to me. Right? And then afterwards I'd have conversations, whatever, right? And he goes, do you have a relationship with Jesus? Well, I'm like, well, I mean, what does that mean? I know who Jesus is, but like, how do you have a relationship with him, right? And he taught me the difference between like knowing of something and knowing something, right? He's like, most people know of, like, I know who Jesus is, right? But you don't know Jesus, right? And so I was like, okay, well, how do I do that? And he's like, well, you got to read your Bible. I'm like, preacher, man, like, I'm a terrible reader. My attention span can't last long enough for me to read, right? And he's like, he goes, do you go to the bathroom? How many times a day do you go to the bathroom? I'm like, I don't know, once or twice. And he's like, to take a dump? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, do you have a phone? I said, yeah. He's like, download an app, right? Download a plan. And while you're sitting there taking a dump, you think you give God 5 minutes of your day? And I just kind of laugh. I'm like, yeah. It's kind of stupid, but okay. And, but I did. And I did that. And the 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes, which turned into 30 minutes, which turned into an hour, which turned into 2 hours, which turned into this all day thing where I'm like, I couldn't get enough of it. And so by the time I was done with my convalescent leave and I went back to work, like my spirit, like I was a completely changed person. People were worrying about things. I'm like, why are you worrying about this stuff? This stuff doesn't matter. Can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I just remember like there was like a level of peace that I had acquired during this time that I just get back and they're like, hey, you're done with the military. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll be fine. Wasn't super thrilled about it still, but I was like, okay, I'm good with it.
We'll make it work.
I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna be dad. 15 years, Purple Heart, Green Beret. They're like, hey, you can hang your hat on that.
Absolutely.
I said, yeah. So I went home and I had another, and I went home and I tried to, I was on unemployment, I was collecting unemployment, which, is kind of a pride thing, but doing what I can. I had finished my degree, so I was starting my master's degree because I was like, well, I need something I was getting paid to go to school, so I was like, well, that's income coming in, right? But it hadn't kicked in yet. Let me just back up a little bit. I went to Florida. My actual retirement date is October 1st, 2018. And I was in Florida and with the last of our money. And I was just kind of sitting there just the whole drive back, just going, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Again, like I was applying for jobs. Nobody wanted me. All my credentials, certifications, everything, nobody cared. I had to make a certain amount of money in order to sustain what I had, and I couldn't get that. And so I'm just like, oh my God, like again, like why, what, right? And I'm driving the whole way back from Florida, just with this whole 12-hour drive just in my head, right? I don't know how I'm going to feed my family because I have no food. I have no food left in my fridge. I have no money in my bank. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills, right? Fortunately, I called, my wife's like, well, just call the bank, see if you can work something out. And I did. We were able to work something out. I was like, look, I'm going to get retirement. I'm going to get VA. It's probably just going to take a month or two. And they're like, okay, yeah, no worries. So the banks were cool. So I was like, okay, cool. But then the food aspect, I'm like, how am I going to feed my family? Thanksgiving was coming up, right? I'm like, or I had to worry about, I was worried about Thanksgiving, right? Coming up. And that's when I started that's when I really learned how to make things from scratch. Like back in the old days, like I started learning how to make my own bread, started learning how to make my own pies, I'd go hunting for my food or whatever. But let me back up. I digress though. When we got back from Florida, it was just like the afternoon and I was just so lost. I'm like, babe, I'm just gonna go sit in my tree stand. And I grabbed my bow. I grabbed one arrow just in case. One arrow. And I was wearing a t-shirt and some jeans, right? And not even wearing any camouflage. And I went up into that tree stand. I wasn't even hunting. I just set my bow down. I pulled out my phone and I just opened up my Bible and I just start reading it on my phone. And after like 30 seconds, I start crying. Because again, I'm supposed to take care of my family, And again, it was like, I was shown that everything was going to be okay, but here we are. What's the deal, right? And again, I'm like in the tree stand. I'm going, I don't understand. And why am I going through this? Like I have no food in my fridge, and I stopped reading, and I'm just sitting there, just like I don't get it. Alone in the wilderness, just I don't get it. Why am I going? Why? Right? And not sooner than that, I hear, and I look over. And there's this big doe just standing there I'm like, well, hell. And I load up my bow. She's not moving. She's looking right at me. I know she sees me, but she's not moving. She's not flinching. I'm long enough for me to draw, line up, and I fire, and she drops. And so I get this deer. I process this deer. I learn how to process a deer. My neighbor comes over, helps me butcher it, and I didn't have a meat grinder or anything like that, so he loans it to me. So I learned how to process a deer, right? And then when I got done with that, the next day he comes over. He's a pig farmer. He's like, hey, I don't have any. He gets like a pig every year from his boss, right? Or whatever, right? And he's like, hey, I don't have any room in my freezer. Do you want this meat? I'm like, well, yeah. So like in 24 hours, I went from having zero food to my fridge is overflowing with food. And I'm just like, oh man, you know what I mean? And so I start thinking back and I'm like, okay, you have my attention, right? And yeah, so it's just like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Because I still don't have a job. So what's the deal? What do you want me to do? And it kind of told me, it's like, hey, if you remember like back in SEER school and this, and now I literally just overflowed your refrigerator, like you're going to be fine. Your finances are going to be fine. Your banks, you can say God had a hand in that if you choose to, but like the banks, my mortgage company, they're like, yeah, we'll work with you, whatever. We're not going to hold it against you. We understand, so don't got to worry about finances. You had no food, now you have food. And guess what? You learned some skills. You learned how to make things from scratch. You learn how to process your own food. So now you're more self-reliant. You don't have to rely on anybody except for, your skills in me, right? I'm like, okay, I dig it, right? I appreciate that. But what do I do about a job? And so I got introduced to the junior ROTC. And I had not found anything outside of the military that made me feel like I had purpose and relevance like I did back in the military. I had this fire in me. I woke up because the whole purpose thing. God has a purpose for you, right? I'm like, okay, well, what's my purpose, right? And I had this whole fire in me, and it's like, well, I like shooting, but do I want to be a marksmanship coach? Well, I like camping. Do I want to be? But I don't want to be like a guy hunting. I don't know if I want to be a guide or anything like that, right? I enjoy all these things, and I just want to share it with people. And so I got introduced to junior ROTC, and one day they called me up. They're like, hey, my son was a part of the program, and I was volunteering, coach and whatever, and again, mentoring them with skills and whatever, and physical training and whatever. And one day they called me up, and they're like, hey, would you want to set up a land nav course and some survival lane for these kids? I'm like, sure, whatever, right? And I didn't know all the fancy ways of doing things. At that time, I just knew what I knew from the Army, which was like magnesium strips and ferro rods and stuff like that, right? And lighters. But I'm like, yeah, we'll make a day of it. And so I made a whole day with like shelter and fire making and land nav, and they had a blast. So much that at the leadership camp that they hold every year, they invited me to create a fieldcraft lane where we come and we talk about direction finding and water purification and acquisition, procurement and purification, fire starting, shelters, and foraging and all this stuff, like 2 hours of just like a crash course of like, hey, and then go execute, right? And that was a success. And I was training like thousands of kids a year coming through my lane. But what it did for me was that like, well, if I'm going to get this level of like engagement from these guys, I don't want to look like a dummy. So I need to up my skills a little bit. And so I started crash coursing in YouTube University and whatever class I could find, and people, like yourself, like, hey, show me how to do that, Yeah. And so I'm reluctant to say I'm a survival instructor, more of like just like a fieldcraft enthusiast, and I just like to share what I've learned. And over the years, I've learned how to do everything almost self-taught to a level where it's just like I was just like missing like one little thing, and then I find somebody who knows what they're doing. They'd be like, okay, yeah, you're almost there, but do this next. And then bow drill, bam, like 99% success rate on bow drill. Pretty happy about that. And like hand drills, I was getting there, but I was like missing one thing. I met a guy and he's like, yeah, do this instead. And I did that, boom, success rate on hand drills immediately go up. And then the shelter and everything else is like, yeah, I got it. Like you'll figure out how to put a roof over your head. That's not rocket science. but all these skills, like it was like starting to make more sense and learning the science behind it. And
You just needed the holes filled in.
Just needed the holes filled in. And so because I didn't want to look stupid in front of these kids and their instructors, it forced me to get back into all of these skills that I had learned previously, refine them and enhance them, but also being able to find a level of mastery, enough of a level of mastery in order to teach them the why. I call it the why comes. I had to teach them the why comes, like the how comes, but the why comes, because when you understand the whys, it's my philosophy on teaching, right? Marksmanship, whatever. If you understand the why, you build your foundation, right? You establish a foundation once you understand your why, and then you can build off of it however you want. Like, you don't want to do it that way, fine. But you understand the basics of it. And that again ties back to this whole special forces thing, because what's the difference between, me and you? Well, in my opinion, is that special forces masters the basics. When we go out to the range, for example, we spend hours, painful hours with a pistol, for example, of just in the holster, position 1, position 2, position 3, position 4, position 5, fire. Hours.
Just repetition.
Oh my God. But I had a sergeant major that believed you cannot do the sexy stuff unless you can master the basics. And so we became masters of basics. Everything we did, we would focus on the basics. And then once we had a mastery of the basics to where it was second knowledge without even thinking about it, then we can start building into the sexier stuff. And so I take that philosophy into my training, whatever it is I do, is that first we're going to focus on the basics. I don't care what level of proficiency you have. We're going to start on the basics and make sure that we have a level of mastery on those basics, and then we'll build upon it. So I did that, and now I lead. I'm the lead instructor for the Junior Cadet Leadership Challenge, whatever, in Eastern Tennessee at a Boy Scout camp, which again, just hundreds of kids come through. It's much smaller than the other one, but again, just hundreds of kids come through, and we teach them survival, fire, and water purification, just basics on that, and just have a blast with it. But not sure how I forgot how we went down that rabbit trail, but talking about that purpose, right? That purpose and relevance. When I felt that fire and I was like, well, I like doing these things and I want to share it with other people, man, it was like the best thing that could have happened. But I wouldn't have gotten there unless I went through those valleys. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, and so here I am today, man.
That's what brought you out of that hole.
That's what brought me out of that hole, was just to share the knowledge and be a mentor and be a teacher, man. And I just love it.
It's good, man. It's good. A lot of people don't understand how much a purpose can do for your mentality. It's if you're sitting around doing nothing, the amount of mental issues that you can have from that, to where if you have something that you have your goals, your eyes set on, I want to accomplish this, I need to do this, it keeps you busy. You don't think about the small little things all the time.
Well, and here's my theory on it. And I didn't come up with the theory. I think I just adopted it and reapply it, whatever. And I teach my kids now in my cadets. I teach it now. And it's called the IR theory. And it's a ratio, it's a proportion between your identity and your role in society. I don't know what I can't remember what the actual one is, but I reinterpreted it to your identity and to your role in society, right? Okay. And so being a ratio or a proportion, it's like, well, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your identity?
Are we talking like number wise, or?
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being you're the best thing since sliced bread, 1 being you're scum of the earth, 5 being your average.
5.
Okay, 5.
Yeah.
Now, what about your role in society?
I'd probably say about the same.
Okay, so your baseline. How about you over there? Can I talk to you? Am I allowed to talk to you? Okay.
I'd probably say about middle 2, about 5.
Yeah.
5 and 5. Okay. So what I find most people will do is they'll say 5 or less on their identity, but their role is going to be 5 or more, 5 or greater. And so what that tells me is that society, culturally, we place more emphasis on our role in society versus who we are and what our purpose is. And so what happened to me was that when I was in the military, I was Sergeant First Class Green Beret Russell, right? That was my role in society. And I was at an 11, right? That was like, But I didn't have an identity, so that was like a 1. And when that got stripped away, I was left at a level 1, which I had no identity, which means I have no purpose, which means I have 0 relevance, right? And so the way that I teach it to my cadets is that it's okay to have pride in your role in society, but don't let it ever be greater than how you revere yourself.
Absolutely.
You want that to be like a 7 or above, so that you're secure in your identity, because like, I'm a teacher today. Well, hell, I could get fired tomorrow. But if I put all my eggs and all my value and self-worth into that role and it gets taken away, well, then who am I? I fall right back into that pit. Versus if I'm secure in myself, which is what I find through my faith in Christ, that in my identity, I mean, I could lose my job tomorrow and be like, hey, I'll be all right. It's fine. You can handle so much more if you're set in your identity versus your role. You separate yourself from it. Like you work at Napa, right?
Yep.
And you're working on Hoosier Bushcraft, right?
Yep.
And that's great. But don't let it ever become more valuable than who you are as Tony.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's my theory. That's my theory, my philosophy on it. That's what I try to teach my kids. You know, it's just
it's a great lesson, man.
Just to be able to overcome. But that's what I had to learn going through my trials when I was coming out of the military. That's what I had to learn. Was that, yeah, you were a Green Beret, but that's not who you are. I'm Patrick. Well, who's Patrick? I'm a teacher. That's it. I'm an educator. I'm a mentor. You know, that's who I am. And as long as I can continue to do that, hey, we're good. Nothing will take that away. And then I'm secure in my faith. I'm secure in my role as part of that plan and that will of just being that mentor, teacher, and guiding light, if you want to call it that. And as long as I have breath, that's what I'll do. And I'll always, and you know, I can lose everything tomorrow, but I won't be happy, but I'll be fine.
Pulls all that fear and what ifs out of your head.
Exactly. And I think that as well is having that resiliency and that mindset from a survival stance, trying to teach, like, the more set that you can be in yourself and in your confidence level and in who you are, the more resilient you'll find yourself. And so you're like, oh, I'm not eating. And you're like, oh, but I'll be fine because I know I can get food. I just have to have the discipline to go do it. And that's a completely different conversation. But at least knowing your capabilities and knowing who you are, it increases your resiliency,
Absolutely.
A lot.
Yeah, that's a great story, man. We're going to take another little break. When we get back, you kind of got into the JROTC. We're going to dive a little bit more into that and McGeezy and Wilderness Mastery School.
Eventually we'll get into what I do.
We'll get there, man. All right. The Warriors in Nature Project is something that means a lot to me. They're a nonprofit organization right here in Indiana, ran by veterans for veterans. Their mission is to get veterans and their families outdoors and unplugged from the chaos of life after service. One of the main tasks they're taking on this year is the Veteran State Park Pass Project, which they're providing annual state park passes at no cost to give veterans and their families a chance to reconnect, recharge, and rediscover peace in some of Indiana's most beautiful outdoor spaces. They do several meetups and gatherings a year at different locations, bringing veterans together while teaching new skills, hiking, kayaking, and much more at the same time. You can follow them on Facebook or visit their website at warriorsinnatureproject.org today and help support their cause of taking better care of the people that sacrifice so much for this country and all of us. All right, man. Final segment.
Yeah.
Finished off last time. JROTC.
Yeah.
What else are we doing now?
Okay, so we need to get into the actual survival stuff and that gig, right?
We're at that point now.
Yeah, we got to get there. So backing up to when I got out of the military, right, and I'm job searching, right, before I got hired on to the junior ROTC, which was like a 5-year battle, which is a whole different, it could be a whole different episode on just that.
Yeah.
But I found work in project management and home restoration, which, you know, I was able to apply a lot of my skills and business skills and things like that I had learned, and learned sales and all that stuff. It ultimately just wasn't for me. I'm just not a salesperson. I don't like it. But what I got out of it though was I had this one customer, and just it was rough. It was a rough time. It was one of those projects that just could not go right, and the guy let me know as often as he possibly could that it was not going right. I ended up developing a twitch because of it. And I laugh. I'm like, I've been blown up, shot at, jump out of airplanes, do all these things, freaking stone cold, right? And this guy, my phone ring, and I'm like, just start tweaking out, like, oh God. And it got to the point where like I'd sit there with my boss, and all of a sudden I just like tweak out. And he's like, "Are you okay?"
I'm just thinking of this guy.
I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm getting like Parkinson's or something. Like legitimately thought. I'm like, I'm getting Parkinson's or something, right? I went to a neurologist. I got an MRI and everything like that. And they're like, no, it's just stress. Like, you were stressed out so bad. I'm like, well, that sucks, because I had a heart attack, right? And so I'm like, don't need that in my life. Anyways, I was watching a YouTube video on how to make a knife with Harbor Freight tools. And I'm like, well, I got all those tools. I had bought a forge like a year before, because I went to a little veterans knife making thing, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get a forge. And it just sat in a box for like a year and a half, because it was so intimidating to actually like get into. And finally I was just sitting there, and I was just like, well, I can do that, and cut out the blank and, do the thing and whatever. And so that's what I did. I got some steel, and I watched the video step by step, and I was like, okay, cut out the knife, right? And I did everything it said. But what I noticed, my twitching went away. Focusing on knife making calmed me, right? I don't do talk therapy. I can't sit and talk, ironically, right? But I can't sit and do talk therapy. But by investing into the knife making, I just realized that it centered me, right? And it became my form of therapy. And I was like god awful knife maker. Like, things were ugly as sin in the beginning stages, But I was out there like, I didn't have a grinder or anything. I was with files, like.
But it was serving its purpose.
It was serving its purpose, yeah. Whenever I felt sad, angry, whatever, PTSD, whatever, I would just go out into my shop, and no air, no heat, no whatever, 9 billion degrees inside my shop, metal building, just sweating my butt off, just listening to tunes and getting completely engulfed into the project. But what I noticed was that like I said, my jumping was gone.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, we're on to something here. So I kept going into it. And then people were like, can you make me a knife? And I'm like, you realize I have no idea what I'm doing, right? And they're like, yeah, I just want you to make me a knife. I'm like, okay. And so I started making these little Skinner knives and just handing them out, just getting them out to people, right? And they're like, I'll give you like $150 for it. I'm like, all right, whatever. And anyways, I needed a mark. I'm like, well, if people are going to be buying these knives, I need to start upping my game a little bit, right? The whole sales
market
thing,
yourself,
marketing and all that. And I didn't want to market Special Forces Green Beret, because we're quiet professionals, and it's like taboo to even mention that like I was an SF guy. So they'll be like, oh, you're going against the credo of quiet professional and whatever. And some people get really upset by that stuff, So I was like, well, I don't want to market the Green Berets, things like that. So I was like, well, I'm going to call myself the Bearded Bastard. I had a big beard. I'm going to call myself the Bearded Bastard, which is like a nom de guerre for Special Forces, right? And Bearded Bastard Outdoors was created, and that was just like my little knife making thing, and what I would do is I would make the knives, and I would invite veterans over. Well, let me back up. I was making knives, and I ended up meeting a guy who eventually went on Forged in Fire or whatever, but he was a knife maker, and he mentored me and coached me and everything. I'm like, hey, I'm having trouble with this, or how do you heat treat this, or like, what's the proper way to do this, and he'd coach me through it and whatever, and got me pretty proficient in what I was doing, to the point where I'm like pretty confident in what I'm doing. And I went up, and I was up at his place doing the thing, and I'm like, well, I can do this. So I start bringing veterans over to my house and my shop, and we just bang out a knife, right? And we just have a great time doing it. So I did that for a number of years, and that was Bearded Bastard Outdoors, was just knife making, selling knives, and bringing veterans over to give them a day to kind of just forget their troubles and whatever is ailing them for just
Their therapy.
Right. Sharing what I knew, again, giving to others. It's something that I enjoy in sharing with others, right? Which was like the whole thing, right? That developed in my life was that was what I found joy in. And but then when the survival thing kicked off, Bearded Bastard Outdoors turned into the whole survival aspect of it. And I was like, I'm going to go be a survival instructor because I really enjoy this stuff too. And I'm going to share what I know. And I mean, it was fine, but it was really hard to market yourself as the Bearded Bastard when you're trying to like line yourself with Boy Scouts or churches or whatever. And it's like, what's your name? It's like, I'm the Bearded Bastard. And it's like, yeah, and someone was like, yeah, you really should think about changing your name. And I was like, no, I'm not going to.
This is who I am.
This is who I am. And eventually I was like, yeah, you're right. Took a couple years, but I'm like, yeah, you're right. I kept getting, trying to get with like a youth group or whatever. And it's like, yeah, we can't align with a Bearded Bastard. I'm like, okay. So I changed it to McGeezy Outdoors. And McGeezy Outdoors, McGeezy is a Chippewa word meaning eagle. And on my mother's side of the family, my grandmother had passed, right? And my mother's side of the family is Chippewa, right? And I really like that side of the family and the culture and everything. I've been to powwows, done all that stuff. I really like it, but I never really like immersed myself into it. And when my grandmother passed, I really regretted that.
Of course.
I regretted not taking advantage to learn more about my culture and my ancestors and all these things, right? And like I have like really notable ancestors, I have like the first native lawyer is my great grandfather. And I mean, I have like his notebooks and all this, like there's a whole box of stuff just like from history dating back to the 1700s. I got a whole family tree dating all the way back to where it just says an Englishman marries a squaw, and then 1752 or whatever. I'm like, that's far out, man. And I never took time to invest into it. The language, my daughter's eating it up. She's teaching me stuff. But I never did. And so when my grandmother passed, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make some knives and I'm going to name them Chippewa words. So like that knife, the Ogechida, is Ojibwe or Chippewa for survivor or warrior, right? So that's why that one's called Ogechida. And the neck knife that can also come with it is the Naseya, which is companion, right? Or Nimki, my hunting knife, or the Makwa, which is the bear, and they all represent different things, right? And trying to get immersed into that culture and bringing it into this new business. My name is on my mother's side of the family is McGeezy Agawates, which means eagle shadow, right? And the eagle represents truth, and because they're the ones flying over and they can see everything for what it is, right? So it represents truth, but also the eagle is also the messenger for God, right? The intermediary, right? And so. So it's a very important totem in the indigenous realm, indigenous culture and stuff. So in honor to my grandmother, I changed my name to McGeezy Outdoors.
That's awesome, man.
And so I take everything that I've learned and the teaching methodologies that we've discussed already, and I take in and I adapt it into that, and I teach. Now I'm with the Boy Scouts and I teach at the library, and I teach the junior ROTC, and in fact during the high school day, where there's a portion of the day that's cut out every day for study hall, and like the last 6 weeks we focused on friction fire, and like 30 kids signed up for my class and we focused on friction fire. I had like 80 to 90% success rate on hand drills, getting these 13-year-old kids busting out hand drill fires. Now we're focusing on land nav because it's cold out, so we're focused on map reading and land navigation, all the way until now. Under McGeezy Outdoors, I've started this like online training, because one of the biggest hurdles I have is I would love to go to some of these trainings, but they always fall on there's always a schedule conflict, and I hate that. Because I want to go learn some stuff. I want to go, I want to go to Camp Craft Outdoors or Arc Preparedness or, maybe even Pathfinder one of these days. I'd love to go. But it's just the conflicting of schedules. Timing, yeah. And so I was like, well, I started this online school, a training pipeline, crawl, walk, run methodology, online. So now you don't have to travel. There's no scheduling conflicts. It doesn't cost hundreds of dollars, and you can just at your own pace.
What's it called?
It's called Wilderness Mastery School. There's a group for it on Facebook, which is like, that one's obviously completely free, and you jump on there and you get a lot of value out of it. We try to celebrate each other's successes and build a community. Absolutely. Right? And but then there's also the Wilderness Mastery School, which is through my website, mcgeezyoutdoors.com. Which you do sign up for that one. It's monthly subscription. $19 a month, so fairly cheap.
Yeah. For the skills you're getting in return, that's nothing.
Yeah, and it's completely interactive, right? As I film something or whatever, and I go into greater detail, I'll post it onto that one, and then I post like weekly challenges. And so you do the weekly challenges, and then we do an engagement where it's like we do an AAR, after action review, and say, okay, you could have done this better, we could do this better, how about we try this? And they go back out and try it, post it back into the discussion forum. But it's not just me, it could be you being like, hey, I saw you do this, why don't you try this different? So now it's not so much like an instructor-led thing, but it's like a peer thing where like, you can say I'm the lead instructor or whatever. I'm the one making the videos and giving the challenges.
Everybody else is putting their side in though, too.
But there's input from everybody else saying like, hey, I learned this from, Jason or whatever. And why don't we try this? And they go, okay, we'll try that, or why don't you try this for a skill challenge? Because I really enjoyed that from this school or whatever. Like, okay, let's try that, and so it's like kind of like a melting pot.
It is.
But it's a means of like overcoming those obstacles so people who can't get to those trainings can get the training that they would receive. It's just at the comfort of your own home.
Go outside and do it when it's good for you.
Yeah, go outside when you're able to, and film yourself doing it, post it, and we all critique it, and we make each other better. Yeah. And then there's also obviously the options to get in live personal training, but again, there's that one. There's going to be the scheduling conflicts and whatever. So this is just one of those ways to
help out
and overcome those obstacles. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Where are you wanting to take? Like, what's your future plans? Where are you wanting to take this from here?
Well, so the Wilderness Mastery School, and I'd love to just be able to do one class per quarter, summer, winter, spring, fall class, different classes from beginner all the way to advanced stuff. And what I'm trying to do currently is I'm trying to do something different that's maybe not offered in a lot of places. Because you go to a Wilderness 101 class, right? This is how you make a fire. This is how you make a shelter. This is how you purify water. Like, got it. Like, everybody's doing those. That's a dime a dozen, right? So, but then I go, well, okay, how do I stand out? How do I make myself more, be attractive, right? And so I'm like, why don't I take some of the skills that I learned from being a Green Beret in Special Forces, those field training exercises that we would do in order to like pre-deployment training kind of thing, and immerse people into that. So it's like minimal gear, crawl, walk, run phases, where in order to get to this one, you have to do this, right? In order to get to this one, you have to do this.
Work your way up.
You got to work your way up, right? But you'll get the same level of instruction for land navigation from a Green Beret, that level of instruction, which, I'm not saying it's better than anybody else, but it's one of the better things that we have to be able to do in order to even be successful in the training to qualify, right? So I can land nav in my sleep, you know what I'm saying? Like I do pride myself on being able to do that. Yeah. Anyways, and then just the way I see it is that like there'd be a day of like water survival, or water crossings, or rappelling, or moving through terrain as a team kind of thing, and accomplishing objectives along the way, and immersing yourself in an environment that's like, hey, if you guys were to go out in the woods and he gets hurt, how are you going to get him out? You're on top of a mountain, which has happened to me. I fell off a mountain, busted my ankle. I had to come off of the mountain. No helicopter or ambulance was coming for me. So we had to figure it out, right? So what would you do in that scenario? Right? And I would show you how to make expedient litters or poleless litters or carrying techniques and buddy rappels and mechanisms to hoist and whatnot. I would teach you all this stuff, and then you guys would go and apply it. And so that's how I feel like I can stand out. It's like, oh, well, by the way, while we're here, here's how you make a fire.
Yeah. You're wanting to touch on some of the things that the other places aren't touching on that's still in that survival aspect if you get stranded somewhere.
That's how I would love to stand out.
Yeah.
Is that, you can go to any school and learn the 101, but I want to take some of this other stuff that I learned and apply it. So then you get just that much more capability.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I'd like to see this go. I'm going to try my first one this summer. I have a spot picked out in Kentucky. And I'm going to post about it on Facebook, on my McGeezy Outdoors Facebook page, and see if anybody shows up. That's kind of the big hurdle that I am experiencing right now, is just getting people to come.
Yeah.
But, I'm new, and even though I've been doing it for a long time, but still the face is new.
Yeah.
So
you're a name that's rising fast, though. So
well, we hope. I think we're overcoming the hurdles, but hopefully we're going to overcome it enough by this summer to actually get a couple people to come out, and
heck yeah,
we'll have a good time. And so there's that. And then I'm also writing a book based off of everything that we've discussed so far. That my philosophies and teachings and everything of that. It's not like a survival book. It's it's kind of like a self-help book.
Yeah.
But like I call it God Didn't Create You to Suck. And it's based off of my experiences to like Tony, I have the hardest time believing that you were created to be a piece of crap, to not have any relevance in this life or this universe. I refuse to believe it.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe God creates garbage, right? Whether you choose to believe that or not is up to you, right? But I don't believe that. Right?
Of course.
And I can't believe that, out of, the such a slim probability of you even being born, that you're worthless. And so this book highlights that kind of thought process, right? And here's where it stems from. In 2015, I almost killed myself. Okay. Everything prior, all the deployments, all of the carnage, all of the things, I was a dirtbag. I was a scumbag, right? It all caught up to me. And 2015, like April timeframe, I was just having one of those days, and it was just the perfect day to where, like, you can say the demons or whatever got in my head and started just attacking me, assaulting me. You're not good enough, right? You don't deserve to be here. You remember in Iraq when you got hurt and they died? That should have been you, right? Because after like all these guys that I knew died in Iraq, I didn't feel like I was worthy. These guys were loved, right? They had best friends. They had all these things. Like, I had nobody. I didn't even have a best friend. You know what I'm saying? I had my parents. That's it. And so I was like, why did I live and they die? It's something all of us have to deal with, right? And so I justified my existence. Like, I'm worthy of this life because of my successes. So I go special forces and I'd be successful, right? But then also, like, how dare you talk to me in such a way that devalues my successes? Because I worked hard to get up here, right? And by achieving this level, that means that I deserve to live because I achieved this level, right? And so I would do whatever it took to get to that next level. And in 2015, it all caught up to me. And the voices in my head were like, hey, that should have been you. They were loved. Nobody would have cared about you, right? Hey, remember all the times you made your wife cry? Yeah, you're a terrible husband. Remember all the times your son is scared of you? Yeah, you're a terrible father, right? All these things, right? You're a terrible husband. You're a terrible father. You have no friends, right? Nobody will even come to your house to have a barbecue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're not worthy of this existence, right? I mean, like out of nowhere, like it just starts hitting me, and I'm crying, to such an extent that I was driving by, and there was a church, and I was like, I'm gonna drive my car through those front doors, and scream help, because these voices, it was so very real. These voices in my head, the crying, I couldn't even see the road I'm trying to drive. And I get home, and just the constant, the beatings in my mind. And I carried a Glock, and I grabbed the Glock, and I remember I was just sitting there crying, and I'm like, this is it. This is my time. I can't deal with this anymore. I've started telling myself, I'm a terrible person. You're right. I've hurt people. I've hurt my family. I didn't like who I was. I hated who I was. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't deserve this life. Right. And I had that gun in my hand, and just a small part of me just prayed and was like, God, if you're really there, make the voices stop, or I will. Right. The radio was on, and the voices were overcoming the radio, right? I couldn't hear anything on the radio, right? And I'm just sitting there in my car, and I'm just like, God, like, if you're really there, make the voices stop, or I will, right? And I had the gun in my hand, and the voice in my head says, why are you praying? You're not worthy of his grace. You think you're worthy of his mercy. You're worthy of being saved, or whatever. And the next voice I heard came through the radio, and it was 3 words, and it said, you are worthy. And the voices stopped. I sat up. I know what I heard. I sat up. The voices stopped. I stopped crying. I put my gun down. I went inside. I hugged my wife. I told her what happened. And I went to church that next Sunday. And they did the call, right? I could feel the pull, but my body didn't want to move. But I forced myself out. And I'm this 250-pound Green Beret, barrel-chested freedom fighter, I'm this big, buff dude, right? I get to that altar, and I collapsed, and I put my face on the stage, and I start crying. And I said, I need to be saved. I need God to save me. I don't want to be this person anymore. And I cried so much. And anyways, so I had that experience. And that was in 2015. That was before my heart attack and everything like that. And so I took that moment as like, that's my foundation. You could have the strongest atheist in the world and tell me I'm wrong. I'll be like, I don't care what you think. I know what I experienced. And I am grounded in that no matter what happens, like I'm not moving.
Yep.
And so as things progress, and I became to like just go down this rabbit hole, and down this rabbit hole, down this rabbit hole, down this rabbit hole. And I came up with this idea. I didn't come up with it. I just adapted to this idea where, it's kind of in line with laws of attraction, laws of vibration, all these, these rich guy gurus kind of preach, whatever. But it makes sense to me, right? Dr. Caroline Leaf, I listened to one of her seminars, and it talked about at the subatomic level how everything has a vibration running through it, like Einstein says.
Yeah.
And so how is God omnipresent? Well, maybe he has something to do with this vibration that is everywhere at the same time, all the time, right? And it was just like, oh, well, that's interesting, right? And so I'm listening to it, I'm engulfing. I learned about how your mind is created to have a conversation in the third person. Your mind is created in order to have a conversation. Why? That's why meditation's healing. That's why we pray, right? That's why we talk to ourselves. The voice in our head, our brains are created in order to have a conversation, third person conversation like that. And we're the only creature, biblically speaking, that is created in his image. The plants, animals, the plants, the trees, the fish, the animals, everything, it says in their likeness, but humans is in our likeness. We're the only ones that says that, right? And so that means that's something special.
Yeah.
Right? And if you believe in that, then I believe that we're a creation of our Creator, And if we're in his image, that means we are in ourselves a creator, which means we have the capability of creating our own reality. We're the only species that can go to anywhere in the world and create a reality in order to adapt to it, change our stripes. You know, a tiger's not going to change colors to adapt to New York City. It's just not going to happen. But we can. We can adapt to the jungles of Taiwan or Thailand or whatever, wherever a freaking tiger is. I don't know. Somewhere over there, right? But we can adapt to it and we can survive and thrive there. We're the only species that can do that. And so going down that rabbit hole, there's like, well, if I can create whatever reality I want to, how do I start doing that? And again, that goes into defining who you are in the world, in the life that you want, in accordance with your purpose. Because I refuse to believe that you were created without any purpose in this life, right? Mine is to teach, which means that if I hold on to my purpose of teaching, then my reality is going to become that I'm a teacher, and I get opportunities to mentor, and I get opportunities to teach, just like yours is to, you know, do with the Hoosier Bushcraft, to bring people together and network and stuff like that. That could be your special skill. And so you lean on that and you share it with others, and you lean on that God-given capability, right? And so then that's how you create your reality, right? We put too much pressure on our realities based off of what we see on social media and on the news, and this immeasurable measuring stick that we'll never achieve, right? Versus what really matters, and that's who we were created to be, right? And so my whole book touches on that God didn't create you to suck, right? But it's your decision. You know, you can either measure yourself against this stuff, or you can lean on who you were created to be, and you can have a fulfilling life. Because like me, man, I chased the money, I chased the women, I did all that. I tripled my net worth like that. You know, it didn't bring me happiness. I was almost the first millionaire in my family. It brought me more stress and pain than anything. Now that I am where I'm at, which I had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations. I had to lose a lot, and I had to get beat up a lot by life and spiritually. I had to get beat up. I find so much content, and like, I don't need money. I don't need flashy things. And there's freedom in that.
So things that really matter in life.
Exactly. There's freedom in that. And I think that goes into the whole survival thing too. God gives you everything you need. And 100 years ago, we knew that. We knew where to get our medicine from. We knew how to take care of our families with basic items, you know, but we've lost our ways. And so if God provides everything for us, we just need someone to show the way and show you how to do that. And so that's what I want to do.
Sounds like an amazing book, man. Like, I really look forward to it coming out and reading it. And
about 3/4 of the way done. I already have someone in line for publishing because I'm a terrible salesperson. I don't want to self-publish. I've already given her the manuscript, and she's like, you need to write this yesterday. And she's like, I already got people who'll publish it and do everything. So I just got to get it done.
Yep.
But again, it's the discipline of sitting down and my ADD brain actually letting me do it. Yeah.
That's good, man. I look forward to it. All right, we're coming to the end of the interview. Same question I ask everybody else. What skill do you suck at or just absolutely dread? Somebody's like, hey, Patrick, show me how to do this. And you're like, ugh.
So I think the easy answer is friction fire. Still at the point
Even though you're still so good at it?
Yeah, but I mean, if you're like, hey, we're out in the woods, like, hey, go build a bow drill, I'd be like, ugh. Like, ugh. Hope I don't look stupid.
Just the aspect of it.
Just the idea of it, I think. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to do it, but it's like, that what I'm trying to build on right now is plant identification and apothecary. I released two web apps. One is for plant identification flashcards, right? And it's like, shows you little pictures of like the leaves of the bark, whatever. And you're like, oh, that's aspen tree. And you click on it, it's like, oh, I was right. But then it tells you all of the benefits and what you can use of the aspen tree versus just identifying it.
Extremely handy.
Yeah. And I published that one a month ago. And the good thing about that is like, you're like, hey, I found this plant. It's not in your list, whatever. We can
Added in.
Added in. And then just a couple days ago, I released another web app that's an apothecary. So if you have coughs, migraines, anxiety, or whatever, you type in what it is and it pulls up some remedies, there's some natural remedies for teas or tinctures or salves or whatever.
That's awesome.
Which I think it would be very valuable. And they're free.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, because I know a lot of people struggle with that, and I struggle with it.
I do myself.
Yeah, and so, and the only way you're going to get better at it is through repetition.
Yep.
And so that's why I made them. So then, you're like, well, maybe the recipe calls for elderberry. And you're like, well, I don't even know what elderberry looks like. So then you can go to the plant app and be like, oh, that's what or Google. I mean, you can always Google it. But then when you go out into, the woods or whatever, you're like, oh, there's an elderberry bush or some yarrow or whatever. And I told you on the drive up here, I was driving by, I'm like, oh, well, there goes sumac, everywhere. Can't use any of it because it's next to the highway, but I'm like, it's right there. And I've never actually seen it in person because we don't have that where I live, but I know of it, and driving up and be like, oh, there it goes. So a bunch of benefits with that, and that's what I'm trying to get better at now.
That's good. What advice do you have to give to people that are looking to get into this world, starting out?
Like teaching?
No, bushcraft and survival.
Oh,
somebody that's saying, hey, I want to learn more about this stuff. I want to be more self-sufficient. What advice do you have to give to them just getting into it?
Just be patient. Be patient. It's unreasonable to think that you can jump into something and come out of it with a level of proficiency that mirrors the instruction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you've never made a fire with a ferro rod, or we were talking about the other day, flint and steel. If you've never touched a flint and steel, you're going to get frustrated because you're going to be like, why does this look so easy on YouTube?
Yeah.
And it just takes patience, man. Especially like friction fires. When you're learning boat, man, it took me thousands of hours before I got my first ember. I wanted to give up on it. And I would use the excuse of if I have to rely on friction fire, I'm doing something wrong.
Trying to find a way out.
Yeah, just trying to find a way out instead of just being like, no, just freaking knuckle through it and figure it out. So there's somebody there who is willing to help you. And that's just an example of it. But just be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with others. Patience is just a big thing. And if you want to get into the wilderness aspect of it, man, I think the only way you get the biggest benefit of it is if you just go all in.
Yeah.
You can't go in with technology. You just go out. You just gotta go out and just get immersed into it, and just let nature, God, the universe, whatever it is you believe, just speak to you and just reveal itself to you. And then lastly, don't rely on technology. Now that I think about it, don't rely on technology. Technology fails. Batteries fail. GPSs fail. We talked about earlier.
Yep.
All that stuff fails. Rely on your wits and master the basics.
Great advice, man. Great advice.
It's not one, but it's several.
Yeah, it's good though. Yeah, a lot of things that people need to know how to do. It's like you said, a lot of people want to give up, and yeah, just keep trying. So that's good. All right, I want to thank you for coming on. We have a little gift from Jason at Campcraft Outdoors and myself. He's got a little pouch with a knife, Campcraft coin.
Oh yeah, look at that.
I got one of my patches in there for you. So nice little everyday carry bag for everybody.
Much appreciated.
Awesome. Hope to have you on again, man. Your stories are absolutely amazing, and obviously at one point got me, so I hope everybody else enjoys it.
We'll try to be more concise next time.
I like it. All right. Till next time, man.